we all have to take action as governments, as businesses, and also as individuals. We've got to say, what can we do in terms of living more sustainably?
Hello and welcome to CommsLife from APCO Worldwide. I'm your host, Tom Billinghurst. Every episode, we dive into the topics and trends shaping the communications industry. ESGs, SDGs, GHGs, NDCs, whether it's acronyms or the word itself, sustainability is on the tip of the tongue of every communicator today. Likewise, it's at the top of every corporate and government agenda. But what is the substance behind the buzzword of the decade of action? And how do we know if something is genuinely sustainable or if it's simply greenwashing? The process of glossing a product with a stamp of sustainability. Joining us to discuss these questions and more is Alex Malouf, Corporate Communications Director for the Middle East and Africa at Schneider Electric. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Alex, I want to get stuck straight into the topics that we're going to talk about here, at the risk of sounding perhaps naive. Sustainability and greenwashing. Can you break down for us, as clearly as possible, what is sustainability, because it's such a buzzword now, and how that blends or bleeds into the problem of greenwashing?
All right, this is a lovely big issue which everybody is often confused about. For me, sustainability is as simply put as possible, because it's not that simple still. Look at the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. They were developed by the UN. You've got 17 big goals, and they touch on everything which is environmental, social, governance. You've got everything in there. And the best companies, that's what they do. They say, we are being sustainable, and they list it down. They say we are going to be sustainable on SDG 1, SDG 5, SDG 8, 12, and then even further they break it down. And if you want to be smart about SDGs or sustainability in general, that's what you look at. You look at SDGs. And also for us, it's great because it actually gives us an opportunity to benchmark in terms of how companies and organizations are doing.
Okay, so that's where sustainability should be. What we often see sometimes is that if an entity makes a product that is 99% plastic and 1% recyclable, they can then package that as something that is sustainable. When the truth of the matter, it's not quite what they're selling it as. So I guess that's the issue of greenwashing. How prevalent is that in this field?
Greenwashing is very, very common, or far too common. I'm going to say it that way. We are dealing with trust. That's what our jobs are all about. We want our stakeholders to trust what we are saying, and also as well trust what we're doing. And greenwashing is one way to put yourself down a cul-de-sac in terms of not developing any trust. Companies and organizations need to be very transparent in terms of what they're doing and why they are doing it. And it's not just going to be at our choice anymore. We're seeing a lot more legislation coming in Europe, in the US, in Asia, and it's going to impact us here. I'll give you one simple example. The EU and the US, they are introducing carbon tax. Now, basically, what this means is they're going to look at how much energy you use in terms of your operations. They're going to start saying, we want to see your details. We want to see how much energy you're using. And if you're using subsidized energy, like many of us are in the region, they're going to say, guys, you're going to have to start paying a tax on it. So this is going to be a serious issue moving forward. And they're doing it because they want other regions as well to move as fast as they are doing. And many regions not moving as fast as they are. So it's going to be a really big issue, which we as communicators need to be up to.
Absolutely. It puts communicators in, I don't want to say a catch-22, but a tricky position, because you will have your corporate entity, your semi-government entity, asking you or asking you to find a way to sell what they're doing to make them seem sustainable. What is the biggest challenge there as a communicator? Is it in lobbying and counselling and saying, look, you've got to be doing something to evidence this. We can't just use empty words anymore because of the movements, as you're saying, that are coming out of the EU and the US.
I think first of all, we've got to break down misperceptions. One of the biggest misperceptions I saw was this idea that sustainability is a cost to an organization. It's completely opposite. If you get it right, you're saving a lot of money. You're using fewer resources. The resources you're using, you are recycling them, or their end of life is going to be designed in such a way that there's going to be value from how those resources are used. And you're going to get to a point whereby you actually have zero waste from your operations, because that waste is being then pushed out. Anything which is not being used in terms of the products is being pushed out to others in the supply chain to use and reuse. You also have the energy piece, and energy is such an easy issue to tackle. I work at Schneider Electric. We are an energy digital sustainability company, but if you look at how buildings are designed, buildings take up most of the energy in terms of, obviously here it's all about air conditioning, but that also then leads on to renewables. So what can we do? Putting on solar paneling, but also as well looking at buildings, lighting, other elements. And it's so easy to do many of these things. And what we're seeing in places like Europe and the US and Asia is this green recovery. And that's also what we've got to do here. We've got to think, how can we be more sustainability minded? Because that's also going to help not just in terms of carbon emissions, reducing carbon emissions and meeting those net zero goals, which we need to hit if we're going to reduce climate change, or the climate crisis as now it's being called, but also as well, it's a job creator. And that's going to be the new area, green tech. What can we do in that space? So you think about buildings, you think about electric vehicles as well. You can obviously think about microgrids, solar, wind. There's so many areas that we can play in, and there's so many areas that particularly the Gulf can lead on, but it needs courage, and I know you've got it behind you, boldness in terms of what organizations are doing, but also as well policy.
One of the APCO values. Thanks for pointing that out. That's a nice little plug, that, isn't it?
There you go.
You said, I want to pick up on, you said climate crisis, which I think is accurate and right and not alarmist. But the language around the climate, let's call it crisis, is something that's also debated when you have conversations with your clients, if they want to soften the language. Yep. But do you think that's too extreme to call it an existential crisis?
Look, you can ask the people who have been through the flooding in Germany, you can ask people who have been through the fires in Turkey and Greece or in Algeria. This summer we've seen temperatures in the Gulf exceed 50 in Kuwait, Oman, here. There are extreme weather conditions happening across the globe. And if we don't sort them out, then we're not going to be living the way that we are living now in, say, 10 to 20 years. UNICEF put out a report saying that 1 billion children are at risk, and mainly in the developing world, in places like the Middle East, in Africa, in Asia, from everything from land erosion, rising sea levels, extreme weather events, you name it, it's going to happen. And we all have to take action as governments, as businesses, and also as individuals. We've got to say, what can we do in terms of living more sustainably? We all know Greta. Don't even need to say her surname.
The first one that comes to your mind.
Greta's out there telling us all off, and quite rightly, because it's going to impact the next generation even more than it is going to impact us. So we have to take action, and we have to do it now if we're going to hit those targets to ensure that climate change doesn't exceed 2 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, I think the most recent one was called a red warning for humanity, the UN IPCC report, which essentially confirmed what we kind of assumed, that human activity was to blame for extreme weather conditions. But I want to draw you on that point about language as well, and Greta's a good example, the speeches that she gives. There are, real emotional elements to the rhetoric she uses, and it's extreme and it's confrontational, and I think, as you say, as it should be. But have you experienced any kind of pushback when you've tried to phrase this crisis in a certain way with, pushback in terms of that's too extreme? We don't want to be alarmist about this, or are there any analogies or metaphors that the often used one is the fight against climate change, the combat against climate change? It's pegged as this nemesis, antagonist and protagonist. Is there anything you've seen like that?
The wording is an interesting one. There has been debate in terms of climate change, climate crisis. There's been debates in terms of, is the language hard enough? But I think even we've gone beyond that, with all of these extreme events. If you're looking on social media, the visuals that you are seeing, the videos that you're seeing, I was looking at some of the content coming out of Turkey, where they're fires. I don't speak. My Turkish is very, very, very basic, but I could tell just from the tone, the panic in the person's voice, how distraught it was, how distraught he was. So I think this is a story which is going to be told increasingly through people's own experiences and through visuals, through videos. So I think we're even beyond just the simple language of it all. We go outside even here and you can feel the sun blazing down on you. And my wife is from the Gulf. If I ask her, she will say, and older generations will say, it was never like this before. It wasn't as bad as this. And I think that's what's going to move us to taking action, because we have no other choice. So the language is one thing, but I think we're just beyond that now.
I've taken you very executional and tactical in asking about the language, but one of the other many acronyms that we hear is ESGs. I'm going to ask you to break that down, especially from a communications strategy perspective, and how you build that into what the entity you're representing is saying and how they're portraying themselves to the world. But building a strategy with ESGs as an inherent part of it, making sure that your business aligns with public interest, but doing it in a way that, as we alluded to earlier, is genuine and authentic, and is not just, this sounds great in a soundbite, let's jump on the bandwagon.
As they say, if you want to see what's important, you've got to follow the money. And right now, ESGs, every comms person is asking, especially the senior ones, what can we do? How do we do it? A lot of money is going into companies where there is a good ESG rating, companies which are doing a lot about ESGs. What is interesting as well is, and my company does it, Schneider Electric, we actually put out reports every quarter in terms of our sustainability actions. So, we've got our financial reporting, and then we've got our sustainability reporting as well. And I think that's going to become increasingly common, simply because that's what fund managers and others are asking about. What are you doing in terms of these issues?
You touched on Schneider there, and the positioning in particular, which I found interesting, which is it is a sustainability company focused on energy, automation, and digital solutions. I wonder if you can break that down for us, and especially this idea of digital solutions. Prior to our chat today, I was looking at a few sustainability facts, and one of them that struck me was it takes more energy to produce a kilogram of paper than it does a kilogram of steel. Surely we're at the stage now where we shouldn't be printing off reams of paper and cutting down trees for the sake of paper, deforestation for that sake, as opposed to letting the forest breathe and more sunlight come into it. So how does that sit in your day-to-day with Schneider, and what does this positioning mean in practical terms?
There's a very strong relationship between digital and sustainability. So using technology to, first of all, measure what you're doing in real time, accurately, and then using technology also to come up with insights in terms of how you can reduce your carbon footprint, your use of water, other resources. And you're seeing a lot of companies focusing on what they can do when it comes to putting in tech to measure and then essentially analyze and automate even how operations are. And with us, we're a good example of that. We are a digital company. We're also an electrical engineering company. 70% of our products are designed to reduce energy usage.
So your role is corporate communications director for Middle East and Africa. Schneider is a huge entity and headquartered in France, yes. Right? I wanted to focus on you as a communicator for a little bit now. I have read alexofarabia.com, your blog that you regularly update, where you kind of air all things communications and marketing, which I find interesting from a professional standpoint. One of your recent pieces, you said communicators need to embrace uncertainty. I won't read the full 500-word thing. I'll ask you for a précis, but what do you mean by embrace uncertainty, and how is that helpful for us?
I think there's many parts of our job where, let's be honest, the region where we are in, and often the people we are dealing with, you're on the agency side, so I will not say any more than that. But there are. Oh yeah, I've been there. We don't know everything, and we often have to make educated guesses. But I feel that we've got to be braver in terms of what we're doing for the goals that we have if we're going to communicate well. And I think especially on the issues that we're seeing now, and we're seeing this shift in terms of public perception in many parts of the world where they want organizations, the public wants organizations to be involved. They want business leaders to take a stand. For example, you look at what's happening in Afghanistan, you look at what Airbnb is doing, their CEO taking a stand and saying, we're going to help out. They're not waiting around. And that really impacts reputation. The same with climate change, the same with sustainability and environmental issues. So I really want communicators to be brave. I want them to take risks, and that involves us as comms leaders going up and taking a stand on issues, because that's what our stakeholders are expecting now. It's not how it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So we've got to be bold, we've got to be brave and deal with uncertainty.
We hope you're enjoying this APCO Worldwide production. To find out more of what we do in the communication space, head to apcoworldwide.com and see how we are helping firms build back stronger.
Welcome back to CommsLife from APCO Worldwide. We're still here with Alex Malouf. Alex, we've talked all things sustainability and even touched on climate change, hard-hitting, extreme stuff. But now I want to get to know you a little bit better. So I've got some getting up close and personal questions.
Go for it.
Ready for these? All right, okay.
Anything, no holds bars.
Seriously hard-hitting, the sort of stuff you get from a tabloid journalist. So hold on.
Brilliant. I love my tabloids.
Your earliest childhood memory?
Wow. Cinema, seeing Spider-Man without any CGI.
Do you want to tell us which Spider-Man that was? Who was playing it, to give us an idea of the era?
I can't. It was before Tobey Maguire. That's all I'm going to say.
Let's put it there. That's a good benchmark.
Yeah.
All right. You're a well-travelled man, so your favourite place in the world?
Simple one, which is home, which is with my better half and our 6-year-old. In terms of beautiful places, I was raised in Manchester, but my wife hates it, even though that's where we met. I miss Manchester because of the rain. I get one day of rain and that's it. I love London. Chaotic, but everything is happening there. In terms of where else, probably Bahrain, which is where my wife is from. Wonderful. Just because of family.
Beautiful. Your death row meal?
Wow. I am going to be very Mancunian and say a doner kebab. But also as well, I'm going to win brownie points from my mother-in-law and say one of her matchbooses. Nice little travelling around the world before you're sentenced. And obviously a Lebanese mezza as well, because it's my last meal, so I don't care about the weight considerations.
Your preferred social media channel?
It's going to be personal. It's going to be definitely Twitter. In terms of professional, LinkedIn. I'm going to stick with those two.
And finally, communications matters because?
Because we all do it. We don't all do it well. But if you want to build a relationship, you've got to do it based on communications. And if you want to make an impact, you need a relationship.
Wonderful. Alex, it's great having you on CommsLife. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening to CommsLife. If you liked that, leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts. Send us any questions or comments on our Twitter page. And while you're at it, you can subscribe to and download CommsLife on our YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts from. Stay safe and be well.